Live from the London studio of Eman Channel on Sky 757. We're also streaming it live on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and via our website, emanchannel.tv. Humble reminder, please do like, share, comment, and subscribe to all our platforms, including our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our YouTube channel, and of course our Twitter handle too. 0203 515 0757, our studio number 07916 841 483, our WhatsApp number. International viewers can use the WhatsApp number to call in directly into the studio. You can also drop us your text on our WhatsApp number. Leave your questions in the comment section below, either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. And inshallah, we'll try our level best to take as many questions as possible. However, we'll always prioritize phone calls if you call in live into the studio, and all the numbers, or both the numbers, are displayed at the bottom of the screen. Virtually, we have been joined by Imam and Khatib Khidir Hussain after a long time. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you ever so much for giving us your valuable time. And now let's start with our conversation. Before we move on to the question, we know that alhamdulillah we are in the month of Muharram, the first month of the Islamic calendar. Couple of questions before we move on to other questions. Why is this particular month, the month of Muharram, is special?
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. In Surah At-Tawbah, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says that there are 12 months to Allah Azza wa Jalla. From amongst them, there are 4 that are sacred. Minha arba'atun hurum. So these are special months from Surah At-Tawbah. From this verse, we understand that they have significance, they have virtue over other months. Muharram, the first month from the Islamic calendar, the scholars, they said this is the month that is known as Shahrullah al-Muharram. This is the month of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the attribution of Allah to this month signifies something. And the scholars, they said idafatu ilallahi idafatu ta'zim. The attribution of this month to Allah Azza wa Jal signifies that there is great virtue in this month. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he referred to this month as Shahrullah al-Muharram. We know from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, especially his statements and his actions and his agreements, it's very clear that the month of Muharram was a month in which Allah Azza wa Jalla prohibited fighting. So from this, the scholars, they considered it to be sacred. And from another bab, from another angle, is that this is the month where we reflect upon Ashura, the incident that is connected to Musa alayhi salam, and how Allah Azza wa Jalla protected him from Pharaoh, and other incidents that took place during this month, which really signifies and demonstrates the importance and the virtue of this blessed month.
Thank you very much for that. Now, the other question I have for you is, we have seen on social media platform various du'as people have posted as soon as the Hijri calendar started. Is this from the Sunnah? Is it authentic? Or if you can kindly clarify, please.
There is no issue with making dua, and I think it's a good thing as we enter the new year from the Islamic calendar. The right thing to do is make lots of dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, that He brings about prosperity within our lives and He showers us with His mercy. So those duas that we see, there is nothing wrong with those duas. One particular dua that we find that is often mentioned, especially as we enter the new year. Some of the scholars, they consider this hadith to be a hadith that is accepted, so there is no problem with making this particular dua. So I would say it's correct that we make dua, and it can be in Arabic, it can be in English. Any way you want to make dua, there is no problem. It's just, what are we asking for? We're asking for Allah Azza wa Jalla to give us more tawfiq to worship Him and really reflect upon our shortcomings in the previous year. And moving forward, our plan should be to better ourselves, and we need to ask Allah for that, because without the aid and assistance and intervention of He subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will all be impossible. So let us actually make lots of dua as we experience the first week of Muharram.
Excellent. Now, one of the other common question that we hear in this month, and which is particularly common with particular culture or background, that is, we cannot get married in the month of Muharram. Kindly, if you can clarify.
When it comes to matters of ibadat, worship, who shall I take my knowledge from? I need to go to the scholars. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal gives us clear guidance in regards to seeking knowledge, especially when it comes to al-ibadat. Now, did the scholars say this? Well, no, the scholars didn't say this. This person said it, this person said it. No, our religion is not based upon qeel and qal. This person said and that person said. Our religion is based upon the two sacred sources. And this is why the scholars of usul, they said, al-aslu fil ibadat at-tawqif. The foundation of worship is at-tawqif. What is at-tawqif? Ma thabata fil Qur'ani was sunnah. That which is proven from the Qur'an and from the Sunnah. So nowhere in the Quran, nowhere in the Sunnah do we find any prohibition regarding a person getting married in this month. This is nothing, this particular practice has nothing to do with our beloved deen.
Okay, so just to clarify, if someone wants to get married in this month, or it happens to be the family has decided and they get married in the month of Muharram, there is no issues from an Islamic perspective.
Who has financial ability and physical ability, they can get married whenever they want, whichever month they want, whichever day they want. Islam doesn't restrict. There is no specific time. Whenever they're ready, mentally, physically, financially, then they're good to go, inshallah.
Excellent. And final advice, if someone does something in this month of Ramadan which is not from the Quran and Sunnah, what advice do you give to your congregation or to people who ask you questions generally from Quran and Sunnah?
Any of the sacred months, we have to be extra cautious that we don't indulge in that which is immoral and indecent. And what I'm saying is any action that is of disobedience. Why? Because the month being a virtuous and sacred month, the reward is greater, and of course the penalty is greater. So we've got to be that extra careful that we don't fall into the trap of shaitan, and then we give in to our desires and we find ourselves doing that which earns the displeasure of Allah. So as a believing man or woman, I have to be alert at all times, especially in these sacred months where there are many opportunities of doing good. The last thing I want to do, especially in this month and these blessed months, is earn the displeasure of Allah. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us. Amen.
Jazakallahu khairan for that. Inshallah, many more questions we will get on this topic, but let's now move on to our questions. And the first question is from a brother who has sent us a question on WhatsApp. How do you say Ameen when you're praying behind the Imam in congregation? I understand the brother is referring to different school of thoughts.
When we follow the Imam, the one who is following the Imam is known as the Ma'moom. The Ma'moom is the one who follows the Imam. So this means once the Imam has done a particular action, you're supposed to follow him rather after him. Okay, لا تبادر بالإمام, as the hadith clearly says, do not precede the Imam. So for example, if the Imam he says غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, don't say Amin before the Imam at that stage. Wait for the Imam to say Amin, then you say Amin. Don't say Amin before the Imam. Now, the question is it permissible to say Amin with the Imam at that same time? Yeah, that's the right thing to do at that particular moment. So when the Imam says Amin, don't say it after him in this particular situation. Don't say it before him, but there needs to be muwafaqa, right? You say it with the Imam at that time. Wallahu a'la wa a'lam. If you said it after, no problem, but just make sure you don't say it before the Imam.
Thank you very much for that. Next question will be taken from WhatsApp as well. Can we use a paper shredder to discard Islamic literature and text? If no, then what is the best option?
I personally feel that that should be fine. Had there been this system during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they would have used this system. We know from the practice of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba is that any Islamic material, especially material that has verses of the Quran, narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, this is something that carries value and it's something to be honored, right? So we should show honor to it. We can burn it, we can bury it under the soil, we can throw it into the river. These are the methods that are mentioned, especially by the ulama. But what about a shredder? Some of the contemporary scholars, mu'asirin, they said, well, the shredder does the same job. The idea is to get rid of the verses, right? Put it without it just being in the bin or on the floor where someone might step over it. If you put it in the bin, someone might throw something impure on top of it. But what the shredder does is it destroys any of the writing. So some of the scholars, they allowed it. But if a person just wants to be careful and follow the correct method, then in that case, I would say burn it or bury it, inshallah.
Jazakallahu khairan for that. Now, perfect timing for us now to go on to our first break. My dear viewers, if you've just tuned in, you're watching Ask Iman live on Eman Channel with Shaykh Khidir Hussain, who have joined us virtually. If you have any questions, then please feel free to use the contact details that are displayed at the bottom of the screen, or we're also live on Facebook page and, of course, on our YouTube channel. Feel free to send us your questions in the comment section below. So far, I would like to thank the viewers that have sent us questions through WhatsApp. Inshallah, we'll be answering the remaining questions or the question that we received inshallah in the next segment. You're watching Ask Iman live on Eman Channel. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to all our social media platforms. Do stay tuned with us. We'll be right back in a few moments. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Iman live on Eman Channel Sky 757 with me, Qamarul Islam, and our guest for today is none other than Imam and Khatib Khidir Hussain, who have joined us virtually. He's been answering your question in the first segment. If you have missed it, you can find our videos on Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to all our platforms. You can leave your questions either in the comment section below of our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, and inshallah we'll try our level best to answer as quick as many as possible. 0203 515 0757, our studio number, 07916841483, our WhatsApp number, both the numbers displayed at the bottom of your screen. Shaykh Khidir, let's move on to our next question, and this is generated. Brother Abdul is asking, can I recite one surah in Salah and move on to the next one without completing the first surah? Shaykh.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Absolutely, there is no problem with that, inshallah. فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. Allah Azza wa Jal says, read from the Quran wherever you are comfortable. So, if you read one portion from Surah Al-Baqarah, let's just say, وَإِذِ اسْتَسْقَى مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ, and you read 5-6 verses, and you want to go all the way to Surah Al-Ahzab, يَسْأَلُكَ النَّاسُ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ, there is no problem with that, inshallah. Absolutely. Just one more thing. Are you talking about the first unit or in the second unit?
Okay, this would have been my supplementary question as it wasn't clarified. So if you can kindly clarify, please.
In the first unit, it's better that we just read from one portion of the Quran. So, as I said, an example, Surah Al-Baqarah, if you read وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا, read 10 verses from there. In the second unit, what you'll do is read from anywhere you want. Better to follow the tartib, meaning the sequence, go in order. So if you read from Surah Baqarah, the next thing you do is go to Nisa or go to a Surah Luqman, follow the tartib, inshallah. In the first unit, if you read, let's say, 10 verses from Baqarah, and then you stop and go to another surah, is it permissible? Some of the scholars allowed it. There is no problem. Why? Because an incident took place in the life of Rasulullah where he stood up and he led and he started Baqarah, then he went to the next surah, then he went to the next surah. So it shows that the Prophet there was a continuation, but he maintained tartib. So the other scholars said, well, you can't just read from Surah Baqarah, then go all the way to Yasin and take 10 verses from there in the same unit. It's not the proper way to do things. If someone did it, فَصَلَاتُهُ صَحِيح, the prayer is valid, but I think it would be khilaf awla. It's just, it goes against the proper way of doing things. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, let's dissect it a little bit further, just to make our viewers easy to understand. Let's say in first unit, I'm reading Surah Duha, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. So in the second unit, I'm reading Alam Nashrah Laka Sadrak. That's fine.
There is no problem with that.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. There is no problem. Even, for example, if you read Surah Ad-Duha and then you read a surah before it, Okay, so you went to all the way to the beginning of Juz' Amma, and you read, let's just say, وَالنَّازِعَاتِ. There is no problem. It's just خِلَافُ التَّرْتِيب. You just didn't maintain tartib, order. But the prayer is valid. It's a nice thing to do in Salah, and the correct thing to do is maintain tartib.
Okay, the order, just for the benefit of viewers, surah should be one after the other. That's what Shaykh meant. Also, another thing, final point on this question. For example, I'm reading Surah Baqarah, or let's say Surah Nisa. Let's make it easy. Surah Baqarah. Now, I've read the 10 verses of Surah Baqarah. Now, within the first unit, I now jumped to a different surah, to a different ayah. Is that allowed?
And so this is what I previously said, that the Salah is valid. There is no problem with
Okay.
that, okay? But it's not the proper way to do things, okay? If you're planning to read anything else in the first unit, then continue. It's better to maintain muwala, continuation, okay? In the second unit, no problem. You can jump 2-3 surahs and go to another surah. There's no problem. But in the first unit, just reading a portion from Baqarah and then going all the way up to Surah Zumar, it's just not the proper way to do things. But the Salah is valid.
Okay, Jazakallahu khairan for that. Now let's move on swiftly to our next question. Please can you answer? If someone is reading Quran and someone sits with their back in front, is that okay? As in, are you allowed to sit with your back to Quran? I think that's what they're trying to understand.
That's right. Jazakallahu khairan. There is no problem with that. Okay, the only prohibition here is إذا أتيتم الغائط فلا تستقبلوا القبلة ولا تستدبروها. The Prophet ﷺ says, when you go to the toilet, do not put, face the Qibla, or do not put your back to the Qibla. This is regarding the toilet. So some of the scholars, they said, well, recitation of Quran is something sacred, something honorable. So we shouldn't put our back to it. Some of the scholars, they said, but there is no problem to it. It's not haram. It's not prohibited. Okay, so if a person was in the masjid and they're on the second row, for example, and someone happened to be in the front row and they've got their back to the Quran, obviously because of the rows and the setup of the rows, everyone's facing the Qibla, there is no issue to that. Okay, there is no issue. And I'm sure intentionally someone wouldn't come and put their back on the Quran. It just happens. If it's in a masjid setting, then there is no problem with that, inshallah.
Thank you very much for that. Now let's move on to another question. I think this viewer is trying to find out, based on our previous answer in the first segment. I think we discussed about discarding the Islamic literature. Now the viewer is trying to find out that can we burn old damaged Quran, as none of my local mosque have any system in place to deal with any unwanted or unneeded Islamic literature.
Allowed it. Yep, the scholar said it's absolutely fine. There is no problem with that. The three methods that we mentioned is that you bury it, you can burn it, or it can be thrown into the water. When we throw it into the water, I think just a point for us to remember, just to maintain some precaution, and that is not just throw it in a place where the water is impure, okay? Why? Because just to maintain good adab, it's the kalam of Allah we're dealing with. So we're not just going to just throw it into the Thames randomly, okay? We find a place where we think the water is clean and just let it go. What the water will do is get rid of the ink from the paper. So there is no problem with that, inshallah. Three methods we mentioned. You can choose any method, inshallah.
Excellent. Since you're talking about water, there's a question related to water, and it is lake water considered najas?
No, it won't be. The amount of impurity in the water determines whether it's permissible or impermissible. إذا كان الماء قلتين, if the water is more than 2 قلة, then the water is okay, there is no problem. However, the way to determine whether the water is pure or impure, the Prophet ﷺ told us, right? إن تغير ريحه أو لونه أو طعمه. If it happens that the water has a bad odor, smell, or if it tastes bad, right? إن تغير ريحه أو smell, or the color has changed, then we have to avoid that water. But if when you see the water, right, and it's very visible that the water looks clean, no problem, because of the volume of the water, right? So much water, it won't be classed as impure.
Thank you very much for that. Next question, we shall move on to Salah. And I'm assuming this is related to different school of thoughts. If you typically pray Asr Salah according to second mittal timing, are you able to pray in Asr Jama'ah in a masjid if it is being prayed at the time of first mittal?
Absolutely, that's the right thing to do. If you're going to pray later munfaridan, individually, then what is better to do? Pray in a congregation. The reward is far greater. Multiple rewards is given to the one who joins the congregation. So just to follow a particular opinion, am I going to give up the congregational prayer? Absolutely not. So if it happens to be, I go to a masjid where they follow the first mithil and they're praying in congregation, and I just sit in the corner. Why? Because I follow the Hanafi madhab and we pray ta'khiran as opposed to taqdeeman. We pray late. Then you're missing out on the great ajr of praying in a congregation. Unless you have a reason, and then maybe you go to your local masjid where they follow the Hanafi madhab and they pray later, then that's absolutely fine. There is no problem with that. But if you happen to be in a masjid, the adhan is taking place, the iqamah is taking place, why would you not join that congregation? Why would you not take part in that congregation and intentionally delay salah? We shouldn't intentionally delay salah, especially when there's an opportunity to pray. Brother Qamarul, this is a classic question. Often this question comes to us. I follow the Hanafi madhab and I pray Asr during the latter time. That's absolutely fine. This is also proven from the hadith. Anyone who follows this opinion is absolutely fine, and it's according to the hadith. However, I think a balanced approach is that if it happens you've gone to a masjid and you follow the Hanafi madhab, fine. But they're praying the congregation, don't miss out on the ajr of reading the congregation. There is no problem with you praying in congregation at that moment. I'm sure the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't prohibit you, or the Sahaba wouldn't have prohibited you. So the right thing to do is give tarjih, preference to the congregation at that moment.
In 30 seconds, we know wedding season is coming up, school holidays, etc. Asr Salah, people sometimes, they normally play second mithil, but now because they have to attend a wedding or an event, they pray early at home. Is that allowed?
Absolutely, no problem. That's fine. That's the right thing to do. Look, the deen it's got so much flexibility. If the action is proven from the hadith, and people normally pray later, right? When I mean late, I don't mean before Maghrib. There is a certain time way before Maghrib. If they pray later and they're going to a nikah, but the first mithil has come in, right? And they want to pray early, so that obviously they've got another function, let it be. There is no problem with that, inshallah. Some people might say it's pick and choose. Well, I think no, it's fine because there is flexibility. Had there not been flexibility, then of course it would have been pick and choose.
Jazakallah khairan for that clarification. Hope that is clear to many of our viewers. And commonly during this period or these kind of periods during school holidays, we often get these questions asked. And if you have any more questions, if you would like to find out along those topic, then feel free to call us, inshallah. We'll be right back in a few moments. Once again, it's another break. You're watching Ask Eman. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757 with Shaykh Khidir Hussain. He's joined us virtually today, and if you would like to send us your question or if you would like to drop us a text message, then of course the number is displayed at the bottom of the screen for your kind reference, or 07916841483, our WhatsApp number, studio number 0203-515-0757. And we're also live on Facebook page and YouTube channel. Feel free to drop us your questions in the comment section below. I can see already there are some questions there. Inshallah, we'll be taking them shortly. And please do utilize any of the mediums that you feel is easy for you and convenient. Now, let's move on, Sheikh, to our next question. With regards to the Asr Salah, you have clarified it in the previous segment, and Alhamdulillah, you have clarified the situation with regards to first and second witr. And if any of our viewers have missed it, please kindly watch the previous segment of this program. You can find it on Facebook and YouTube channel, inshallah. So hope that will avoid us repeating the question. But thank you very much for sending the question. Now let's move on to the generated question. Brother Bilal is asking, is my prayer invalid if I recite Surah Al-Fatiha incorrectly?
Absolutely. One of the preconditions of our salah being valid is that we read Surah Fatiha. And this means that I read it properly with tajweed and tartil. Allah Azza wa Jalla, what does He say? That you have to read the Quran with tajweed and tartil. So if a person makes lafna jali, a big mistake in salah, big mistake in recitation rather, sorry. And when I say big mistake, I mean there is a big mistake in the pronunciation to the point that it changes the meaning, then the recitation is invalid. And if the recitation is invalid in Surah Fatiha, then the salah is invalid. This is the opinion of the majority of the ulama. However, the Hanafis, they say, well, if reading Surah Fatiha is not fard, it's a wajib, and if a person misses out the wajib, then sajdatul sahwu is sufficient for that person. But the question is, if a person who doesn't know how to read Surah Fatiha properly, are you going to give sajdatul sahwu in every prayer? We're talking about the hukum. The ruling is that, and this is asah, the most correct opinion is, if a person can't read Surah Fatiha, genuinely they're not putting time and effort in, they don't have any issue, right, in terms of pronunciation, they can't pronounce it, but they don't put effort in and they don't read Surah Fatiha, then the salatuhu fasid, the prayer is invalid.
A revered brother or sister watching the program now or later may be worried. What do you say?
That's why we said there's an exception, that if a person has issues with memorizing, a person has issues with pronunciation, there's always an exception, right? And the Sharia understands that, okay? The person who is ma'dur, a person who's incapable, the hukum for that person is different, okay? وَلَيْسَ عَلَى الْمَرْضِ حَرَجْ. The person who is unwell, then there is no blame upon that person. A person who cannot pronounce dad, a person who cannot pronounce the letter after dal, they keep saying zal, they try, they can't do it. Person who has a lisp, they can't pronounce certain letters properly, they are excused. We're talking about bishaklin aam, generally. The general hukum is, if you're able and you can pronounce it, but you don't put effort, there is carelessness, right? You're not devoting your time in learning, and then of course your salah is invalid, especially Surah Fatiha. The other surahs after that, so it's reading, it is sunnah, so the prayer won't be invalid. However, it doesn't mean that you maintain this carelessness and you don't learn it. Prerequisite, as I said, shartun li sihhati salah. It's a condition for the salah to be accepted, is that we recite the Quran properly.
Excellent. So in summary, as we understand, viewers, we always have to try and aim to learn, to practice and to recite over and over and again, the same way we do in our worldly matters. If we don't know something, what do? We learn again and again. And that's the same principle we'll be using for Quran and of course if we were learning ahadith, etc. Now moving on to our next question, and in the previous segment we discussed about wedding season, we discussed about various events, and that's why I think the next question is related to marriage. And the questioner is trying to find out, in an Islamic nikah or Islamic marriage, is it automatically nullified if a married couple have not had any contact for 2 years? And follow-up question is a khula process mandatory? Sheikh, we know that we are live on air. I'm sure you will signpost our viewers what to do.
After getting married, meaning after the aqd has taken place, the contract. And when I say contract, we're speaking about the most essential part of marriage, and that is ijab and qabul, the proposal and the acceptance. This is an integral part of the validation of nikah. For the nikah to be munaqid, for it to be established, this ijab and qabul needs to be done. After the ijab and qabul, now this man and this woman are now married, okay? Now, if they don't have any physical relationship for 2 years, that's not the right thing to do, right? Because an important part of marriage is the sexual relationship, right? So they should. And if they don't do it, and I'm not sure what the reason is, because there shouldn't be any reason, right? If they don't do it, just say as an example, the marriage is still intact, unless the man says, I'm not going to have any sexual relationship with you. This is known as ilah. He makes an oath, right? I'm not going to have sexual relationship. That's another mas'ala. We're not going down that route, but I don't know the full roof, the situation regarding the question. Just I'm trying to answer it based on what you've just said, is that if they didn't, then the marriage is still valid. But to consummate the marriage, they should have the physical relationship, inshallah.
Thank you. And they did add another part. Is khula mandatory?
Khula is not mandatory. It's a last option. I don't understand why would it be mandatory. If a sister is suffering in a relationship, she is oppressed, right? And she has her rights. She's been in a marriage where it could be domestic violence, right? The husband is very physical with her, right, in terms of DV, domestic violence. Then Islam has given her the right to leave this marriage. It's not something encouraged. It's not something encouraged at all, right? Separation only takes place after certain steps have been followed, where two people go for counseling, they see an imam, they say shaykh, they get the families involved, a step-by-step process, which is part of the reconciliation process, trying to bring them together. If all of that fails and this marriage is not working, they're not compatible, or it could be domestic violence involved, where vice versa, the man is being abused, the woman's being abused, then they have their own rights. So a woman who is in a bad relationship, and there could be many factors, not just domestic violence. I gave that as an example. It could be the man is not providing financially, he doesn't pray, he doesn't care about salah or anything, she's tried. Then she has the right to seek khula through an Islamic council. It's a process. But it's not mandatory, it's up to her. If she doesn't want to be in the marriage, then that's the step to follow.
Jazakallah khairan for that. Now, just a clarification for our viewers. If you're watching the program or if you've just tuned in the middle, then of course you're watching Ask Eman, and the nature of the question or the program is to answer questions, and the scholars, the guests that are here on the show, they normally and generally they answer the questions according to the Quran and Sunnah. Of course, with regards to a marriage and divorce, we cannot give any exclusive answer to any of your specific question. It's a general guidance given for specific answer to your specific concern or question you may have. It's better, and it's always something that we encourage from this program, that you have a one-to-one conversation with a qualified imam, and Shaykh has mentioned about counsel, appropriate counsel, Shari'i counsel, and take the necessary advice, as the Sharia counsel scholar or the scholars have to listen to both the sides and have to reach to a conclusion. And in this kind of life setting, it is not possible. And that's why it's unfair to pass a verdict or give opinion based on one-sided information that we receive. So please bear in mind the answer that was given by Shaykh. It's only for general guidance. For specific answer that you're looking for your own personal problem, please take necessary guidance from a specific qualified scholar. And with regards to any law of the land to be broken, whether it's domestic violence, abusing someone, or not giving their rights, of course we live in a country where the rule of law is there, and if we have broken the rule of law, then I'm sure we know what necessary legal steps we can take. And I'm sure if you don't know, please visit the website or speak to someone qualified. There are lawyers available, and inshallah they will guide you appropriately. I hope that is clear. Now, Sheikh, moving on to our next question. I literally have 1.5 minutes, but before we move on to the next question, let's talk about this particular question that has come up. Can we pray our Zuhr and Asr Salat together at Zuhr time, as we have to leave our house at 1:30 p.m? I think they're talking about combining Zuhr and Asr. Sheikh, over to you.
If you're a resident, a non-traveler, fi hadar, not safar, then in that case, no, you shouldn't combine your prayer. The concession is given to the one who is a musafir, the one who is traveling. And we know from the life of the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ, and this narration is in Sahih al-Bukhari, كان يجمع بين الظهر والعصر في سفره إلى تابوك. He combined between Dhuhr and Asr in Tabuk. But he was traveling. The Messenger Muhammad ﷺ was a musafir. وَأَمَّا بِنِسْبَةِ الْحَضَرِ, in regards to being a resident, then no, you don't combine your salah. Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. You pray salah according to its proper time when you are not traveling.
Jazakallahu khairan for that perfect timing. Once again, we will be going for a break. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel Sky 757. Brother Hussain, you're with us live on the air. Of course, we haven't taken you, but you are there in the control room. Please bear with us. Inshallah, when we return from the break, we'll be inshallah taking your phone calls. You're watching once again live on Ask Eman, and we're also live not only on Sky 757, but also on Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel. Feel free to send us your question there. We'll be right back in a few moments. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the last segment of Ask Eman live on Eman Channel with Shaykh Khidir Hussain. All the contact details are displayed at the bottom of the screen. We're also live on Facebook page and YouTube channel. Feel free to leave us your question in the comment section below. Now, Shaykh, just a clarification from our viewers. In the previous segment, you've answered about the combination or combining Zuhr and Asr Salah, and the viewers said they're leaving the house at 1:30 p.m. Just a further clarification. They said we're going to Umrah this week, and that's why they've asked that question. Is the answer still same or is it different?
Jazakallahu khair. From a Shari'i perspective, a person becomes a musafir when they travel more than 48 miles. So if they've left their house, they're planning to go to Heathrow Airport, planning to go to Stansted Gatwick, Manchester Airport, and the airport is below 48 miles, then they're not a musafir unless they exceed 48 miles. When they exceed 48 miles, then you can combine. The only time you're allowed to combine during the stay where you're not a musafir below 48 miles is when there is heavy rain, where there are under certain circumstances. The ulama have permitted it. However, generally, you cannot combine when you're not traveling. I think it may be the case that they're saying, well, I've left my house with the intention that I'm traveling. So if I leave at 1:30, I can pray Dhuhr. Dhuhr is at that time. Can I not pray Asr as well at that time? No, you haven't exceeded 48 miles. You still can go to the airport and pray Asr. So for that very reason, I'm going to say that you pray Dhuhr at Dhuhr time, Asr at Asr time.
Thank you very much for that clarification. And if you would like to hear the full answer, you can visit our Facebook page or YouTube channel. You can find the videos and the previous segment Sheikh has given us full explanation. Moving on swiftly, now this time to a caller. Let's move on to Brother Hussain. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Qamarul Islam. Assalamu alaikum to the respective Sheikh. MashaAllah, it's a pleasure seeing you today, answering our questions, MashaAllah.
Jazakallah khairan. You are regular viewers. You always ask questions and you always engage and ask not only a general question, but good and important questions, contemporary-based questions. So let's find out, what would you like to ask today?
Jazakallah khair. Some of the brothers that I know, mashallah, are looking to get married, and they've gone on these marriage courses. Sheikh, I wanted to ask you, the course that they went on, I think the lecturer was saying to them that they, for the sisters who are prospective wives, they have to get them their own place to live where they don't have any other relatives living there. Some of these brothers obviously got widowed mothers and fathers that they live with relatives, and obviously the cost of living. So I'm seeking clarification. Is it like they've got to get a place where they've got their own space, or they've got to get completely, obviously some of these brothers are in their 20s, got to get a complete living space for their prospective wives and their families, inshallah.
Okay, stay on the line. Sheikh, is the question clear to you?
I couldn't really catch the question. You're going to have to repeat it for me.
Okay, fine. So, Brother Hussain, let me understand. So, you're saying if a new couple are trying to get married, and you're saying if the prospective wife wants a separate house for herself and, of course, for her husband, did I understand so far correctly?
The course that they went on, a marriage course, the brothers are saying that the lecturer said that they're obliged to get her own place where there's no other relative living there.
Okay,
And obviously with the cost of living and everything.
Okay, let me understand. So basically, the brothers, prospective groom or brides, they've attended a particular course, a marriage course, and the course coordinator, whoever is running the course, we are assuming it's a qualified person, an alim running the course, has said that it is mandatory for the brothers to have a specific house only for their wife to live in and no other relatives. Did I get it correct?
Yeah, that's the kind of gist of it.
So you're trying to find out, is this something acceptable, or how do we deal with this situation?
Yeah, especially as they're in their 20s and obviously they're just about
especially if they're in their 20s and cost of living, and it's not an easy to get their own place and rent or buy a house. Okay, clear. Sheikh, over to you. Jazakallah khair, Brother Hussain.
Jazakallah khairan, my dear Brother Hussain, for this question. Look, when it comes to providing for the wife, that's the responsibility of the man. There is no dispute about that. Why? This is the command of Allah. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. The man has to spend on his wife, is his responsibility. So now, when it comes to housing her, giving her four walls and a roof, that's the man's responsibility. So now, if there is a condition stipulated prior to marriage from the bride's side that we're happy to go ahead with this marriage. I'm just giving you an example, but we want to live separate away from your family and you have to provide. Well, if he's able financially, then he can go ahead with that marriage, no problem. But if he's not financially able, then maybe he needs to think about another proposal. That's one issue. The marriage course that Brother Hussain attended or someone else attended, and the course coordinator perhaps said that it's an obligation. That's not the case. Absolutely not. We live with our parents. We may want to crash in with our relatives, and if we maintain barrier, maintain hijab, especially during this difficult time where many people are going through financial difficulty, there is no problem with that. Absolutely fine for a young man to get married and live with his parents in the parents' house and bring his wife in that house. He doesn't have to go separately. It's not a precondition for marriage.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And just to point out to our viewers, Sheikh is not addressing any particular course coordinator here. Obviously, he is replying based on the question that we have received from Brother Hussain. It can be possible that we could have misunderstood, or whoever has attended the seminar or the course may have misunderstood. So it's always best, obviously, if there is any clarification required, ask the course coordinator directly. However, Sheikh has given us a general guidance, and it's according to the Quran and Sunnah. If you have any other question, feel free, or any further, if you'd like to find out, then feel free to drop us a call or drop us a text, inshallah. Now, next question, Sheikh, from YouTube, Brother Ruhan Ali has asked an important question. In the Quran, it says there is no distinction between the prophets, but in other places it says that some prophets are better than others. How do we understand this? I suspect the viewer is trying to understand the verse from the glorious Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah. In one place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ, and another place, لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّن رُّسُلِهِ. Over to you, Sheikh.
When we say لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله, do not differentiate between the prophets, we're talking about the message that they came with. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. To every people came a prophet who stated only worship Allah. So the message of Tawheed that the prophets came with, there is no variation in the message. They all came with the message regarding Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, singling out Allah for ibadah, for worship. Now, when it comes to the fadl of certain prophets, then the virtue of certain prophets is above others. The example is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who led Salah. He is Imamul Mursaleen, the Imam of the prophets, the messengers. When he led Salah on the night of the Ascension, the night of Al-Mi'raj wal-Isra, that itself illustrates that the Prophet ﷺ is the leader of the prophets. So the other verse says, تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضُ. Certain prophets, those prophets, تِلْكَ, those prophets, certain prophets were given virtue over others. For example, Al-Ulul Azm, the 5 prophets that are considered to be the most virtuous, right? Musa, Isa, Nuh, Ibrahim, as Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we don't differentiate in terms of the message that they came with. In terms of virtue, certain prophets have certain virtue. But this is not something that we stand on the pulpit and say, our prophet's better, Musa was better than Nuh, Nuh is better than Ibrahim. That's not the kind of approach we should have, but rather understand that When it comes to the message, they were sent with a task. They were sent with a purpose. So they served their purpose and they tried their best. But when it comes to virtue, then the prophets were given certain virtue. Just to end this with what Imam al-Suyuti, he says in a book that he wrote, Khasa'isul Kubra, right? And this book he wrote regarding the Prophet ﷺ being the prophet who were given certain virtue. He mentions some narration where the Prophet ﷺ says, فُضِّلْتُ عَلَى الْأَنْبِيَاءِ بِخَمْسٍ. In another narration, فُضِّلْتُ عَلَى الْأَنْبِيَاءِ بِسِتٍ. I was given 6 things that other prophets weren't given. What does that mean? فُضِّلْتُ. I was given certain virtue other prophets weren't. So from this, the scholars, they said Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was given greater virtue than other prophets.
Final 2 minutes. Let's see how many questions we can squeeze in. Our sister has called in off air, is trying to find out because we have discussed about marriage, and she's trying to find out, is it true that when we hear if a brother gets married, the woman brings barakah to the house and his risk is increases? Is that authentic, Shaykh?
Barakallahu fiqh. This is a verse from the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says that get married. Don't abstain from marriage fearing poverty. What marriage does is it increases barakah, no doubt. It brings about wealth to a person. This is actually a verse from the Quran. So yes, marriage, some people think, well, I'm not financially able. How am I going to manage this marriage? Obviously, you're going to be reasonable. If you're signing on every week and you don't have a job, then I'm not talking about that person. A person who is able to make ends meet, it's just about managing, then that person shouldn't think, oh, well, I can't get a 5-bedroom house. I can't get this and this. No, get married. And inshallah, through this marriage, as Allah has promised, these are not my words, these are the kalam of Allah. So if Allah has said it, وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا. Who is more truthful than Allah? Allah says, if you are faqir, then Allah will give you wealth through marriage.
Thank you very much. In last 20 seconds, see if you can answer this question. It's an interesting question. Don't know whether it's because you are live. We live in East London. Which madhab should we follow?
We should follow any madhab that is in line with the teaching of the Quran and the Sunnah. Following any of the 4 madhab, there is no problem with that. The scholars of the 4 madhab are scholars from Ahlus Sunnah. As Imam Lalaka'i, he mentions in his book on Aqidah, you can follow the Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki madhab, no problem, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, Shaykh. We have many more questions to ask, but unfortunately our time is out. Once again, thank you very much for giving us your valuable time. You can watch the repeat or you can watch the video of this program on Facebook page and of course on our YouTube channel. Until next time, wassalamu alaikum.